Today, our topic is null if function in SQL. So today we are going to discuss on this null if function. So mainly the topics we are going to cover is preventing division by zero errors and converting empty strings to null and stripping out filter or default values. So first we'll see what is a null if and what it does. So it's a conditional control function used to compare two values. So it returns null if the two inputs are completely equal. Otherwise, it outputs the value of the first expression. So this function in SQL compares two expressions. So it can be two expressions or you can say two column values, and it returns null if they are equal. Otherwise, it returns the first expression. So we'll see what is this meaning, these two conditions with examples. So the main thing is it is most commonly used to prevent divide by zero errors or to clear out default placeholder values. So default placeholder values means like empty strings or zeros from your data. And we'll see in example what is to prevent divide by zero errors. So elif function will use mainly two reasons. One is to prevent divide by zero errors and to, to change empty strings and zeros into null values in our data. So first we'll see basic examples on syntax. So first we'll see the syntax. So null if, and inside that we need to pass two arguments, that is expression one, expression two. So as we discussed initial, so your result will be null if both expressions are equal. You will get first expression if expression one and expression two are not equal. So first we'll see high level examples. Suppose if your SQL code, if you're writing like null if, and inside that you are passing two arguments. So as per your syntax, expression one, expression two. My first expression is 10, second expression is 10, and it returns null. So why it returns null is because our both expressions are equal. So argument equal values. Since both are equal, so we are getting null value. And next one is null if, and first expression is 20, second expression is 5. And in this case, it returns 20. So what is this 20? 20 is the first parameter. So why we are getting first parameter? Because these two parameters are not equal. So that means unequal values. So now we'll see about integer values. Now we'll see about string values. So null if my first expression is apple and second expression is orange, and it returns apple. So apple is the first expression. So why we are getting first expression is, so these are strings and these are all unequal values. So on high level, so whenever you have both equal expressions, you will get null. If you have unequal expressions, then it will return first expression. So why this null if function is implemented is the main core logic behind is, so null if is shorthand for case statement. So this same statement, so whatever we discussed here, whenever we have both expressions are equal, it will return null. And whenever you have null unequal expressions, it returns the first expression. So generally we'll write by using case statement, like first we'll write case, first when condition, when expression one is equal to expression two, then need to print as null. So otherwise expression one. So that means if these both expressions are not equal, then it has to print expression one. So whatever we discussed here, this example, the same thing it is in case statement. So initially we are using with the case statement. So this case statement, it is later implemented NULLIF, that is the shorthand for case statement. So this is the theoretical about NULLIF. So now we'll see the main content. So first, our main content is how to prevent division by zero errors. As I told initially, there are main two reasons to use this NULLIF function. One is to prevent divide by zero errors and to clear out default placeholders like empty strings, zeros. So now we'll see first about how to prevent divide by zero errors. So for this, so whatever we are going to discuss about these three topics is like daily, or you can say common real world use cases. That means in real time projects, the problems we face and to prevent by using NULLIF function. So this is first one is preventing division by zero errors. So the most frequent use of NULLIF is to intercept zeros in mathematical denominators. Because SQL engines ignore null values or yield null during mathematical operations instead of failing. So this prevents your entire query from crash. So here first I've created one table, sample table, and here I have this many columns, and here I'm passing 5 sample data. And if you observe here is, this is 0 here, 7. So this is mainly total sales. In total sales columns, we have first value as 250, second as 0, third is 190, and null and 323. So based on these values, I return like normal case. So why I return normal case is because here I have 250. And why I'm mentioning only these values is our main intention is to divide these both columns. One is total underscore revenue divided by total sales. So in this total sales, so total sales is the one, this one, 250, 0, 190, null, 323. And total revenue is this one, 50,000, 60,000, 45,000, 30,000, 75,000. So we are going to divide these values and by this value. Now, these both are valid values. That's why I mentioned as normal case. And if you come to here, 60,000 divided by 0. So this is normal case, not normal case. So I mentioned like divide by 0 avoided. So that means we need to avoid divide by 0. Next one is 45,000 divided by 190. So this is normal case. And 30,000 by null. So null. So we'll get null, that is total sales. Next is 75,323. 75,000 divided by 323. So this also normal case. So now mainly we are going to look onto this 0 value. Why? Because divide by 0, we need to avoid it. So that is the main thing we discussed here. Divide by 0 to prevent divide by 0 errors. So first what I'm doing, first I'm running my syntax. So select total revenue divided by total sales. And I given alias as average per year from this table. So here what I'm doing, here I'm not using NULLIF function. So if you don't use NULLIF function, so this query will fail for the case of total sales equal to 0. So wherever we have total sales equal to 0, it will get error. So that means the query itself failed only because of this 0. So this is fine, and this is fine, and this is fine, and this is fine, and only because of this one, the entire query is getting failed. And what we are getting error is division by 0. So use try by divide to tolerate division being 0 and return null instead. If necessary, set spark.sql.nc enable to false to bypass this error. So since 0 is there, division by 0 is there, so it's throwing error and it's suggesting two things. One is to use try underscore divide method, or otherwise to set this option as false to bypass this error. So now I want to avoid this error. So what is the solution is, for same query, what I'm doing here is, here while dividing, so earlier what I did, total underscore revenue divide by total sales. Now what I'm doing, total underscore revenue divide by, instead of writing directly total underscore sales, I'm adding nullif function here. So nullif function, and inside that total underscore sales column, comma 0. I'm passing 0. So this is the one change I did here. And additionally, what I written here is, so these are the main two columns we are going to use here. So these two columns I took as input columns. So that I got here. So these two are my input columns. Next, what I did to show this one separately, like how this nullif function works on total underscore sales. So I written separate. So I will get separate column as total underscore sales. So that is this one. And since 0 is there, so I created separate column. So here I mentioned in single quote as 0 and my column alias name as 0. So my 0 column is created and with the default values 0. Since I mentioned 0, so it created all zeros. So why I created here, I will tell you. So this is for just for reference purpose. Our main intention is this one. To explain more better, I created individual. So this line of code I created separately to show this column separately, and to explain this 0, I created this one separately. So now we'll see one by one. So these two my input columns, and the third input column I created by myself, explicitly I created. Next, total underscore sales. So that is this one. So this one, how it is created. So I used a nullif function on total underscore sales. So this is total underscore sales and comma 0. So that means on these two values, I am applying nullif function. So what is my thumb rule for nullif function? If both values are equal, then my result is null. If both values are unequal, then it will print first value. So since here both are unequal, so it will print first expression. So that is 250. And next, if you come here, 0, 0, 0. So since both values are equal, as per syntax meaning, so we'll get null. If both expressions are equal, then we'll get null. And here 190, 0. Since both expressions are unequal, so it will print first expression. So that is 190. And here, since null is there, so my first expression is null, second expression is 0. So you will get uh, output as null. So if you have both equal values, you will get null. And if you have any one of the null value, you will get null. And if you come to this value, 323, 0. So these both expressions are unequal. So I will get first expression as the output, 323. So this is about this one. So if I apply nullif function on this total underscore sales column, so that is the result. And now what is my target is total underscore revenue, that is this one, divide by nullif total sales comma 0. And what is this? This output is this one. This output is this one. So this one I written separately here, right? So total underscore sales. So this is my second input column. That means this is my first input column. This is second input column. So here what I'm doing, total underscore revenue, this value divide by this one, total underscore sales. So since both are valid values, so you will get output as 200. Next, if you come to 60,000 and here null is there, so 60,000 by null, you will get null value. And here 45,000 divided by 190, so you will get this value. And next 30,000 divided by null, you will get null. And 75,000 divided by 323, you are getting this value. So in earlier case, that means without using NULLIF, since we have only one zero in division place, so we are getting error. So to avoid this error, we are using NULLIF function here. And what it doing? So NULLIF function safely it converting to null value. So whatever we have zero value, this zero value, it's safely converting to null value. So and finally, 60,000 by null, we are getting null. So this is about preventing division by zero errors. And next we'll go for second scenario, converting empty strings to null. So first of all, why we'll get empty strings is, so whenever you do data entry, often introduces empty strings or white space, so where data is missing. So that means whenever doing data entry, suppose if your data is missing or if data is not available, so sometimes what they will enter as either empty string, so like this empty string, or simply white space. And you can standardize these to proper null values. So first we'll see how input looks empty string or white spaces. And if you use nullif function, how this empty string and white spaces, it will convert to null values. So here, suppose if you see my input table, so here I have middle name column. In middle name column, if you see here, I have only two non-null values and remaining three is my empty string. So you can say empty string or white space. And if you see here, 1, 2, 3. So three empty strings I have. So those are these three empty strings. So now what I'm doing, so select middle name. So that is this is my input column. So here what I'm doing, nullif. On this middle name column, I'm applying nullif and I'm giving empty string. And I'm giving alias name as middle name from this particular table. So now this nullif, what it doing, it going to every value. So here Kumar is there, it printing Kumar. So that means what I'll do is empty string. So to explain this, as I created earlier, similar way I will create it to show much better to understand this one. So middle name, comma, empty string. So here what I'll do, I will create one column explicitly, that is empty string. As empty string. If I try to execute now, see, maybe I'll remove this double quote and I will keep only this one. Okay. So why I created this one is to explain this one. So my one input column is middle name. So that is here I have. And what it given here is empty string. My second expression is empty string. So for that empty string, I created one column here. Now, if you compare, that is middle name, comma, empty string, that is this one. These two are non-null values. So that means non-matching values. So this is value is there, this is empty string is there. So whenever you have non-matching values, what you will get? You will get first expression. So that is Kumar. Now here, now both are empty string. So middle name also empty string and this one also empty string. Since both are empty string, we are getting null. And here sync and here it is empty string. So since both are non-unequal values, so sorry, since both are correct unequal values, so we'll get first expression. So that is sync. And for remaining these two, so since both are empty strings, that means both are equal values. So we'll get null values. Okay, so converting empty string to clean null records and convert empty string placeholders to actual null values. And why we are converting this one is suppose uh, yeah. So we have empty strings, right? So these empty strings, by using this nullif function, so we are converting to null. Okay. So this is just for avoiding these placeholders. So here placeholder is empty string and white space. So that means instead of showing white space, if we have null values, so we'll come to know that we don't have data, missing data. And this is second uh, example. And third one is filtering out default placeholders. So that means sometimes legacy systems use specific numbers like 0 or -1 to prevent missing data. So like 0 we saw already in first scenario. So in this scenario we'll see -1. So here treats -1 as missing data. So that means we need to convert this one as null value. So if I see my input table and if you go to my age column, so I have two -1 values. So now since as I mentioned -1, it belongs to missing data, either 0 or -1 represents missing data. To standardize the format, we want to convert to nulls. That means further to do any transformation, we want to convert those things to missing null values. So here what I'm doing, select age, and here I'm applying nullif function on age column. And what I want to change is -1. If you see in our first case, 0, so we want to prevent zeros. So in nullif condition, we given 0. And if you see previous case, since placeholder is empty string, so here we give an empty string. And this case, our placeholder is -1. That means these are all the values we want to convert to null. So here my placeholder is -1. So that means this is expression 1, this is expression 2. So here what it does is in each column, so wherever we have -1, it will convert to null value. So how it will convert null values? First expression is age, that is 28, and second one is -1. So 28 -1, so these both are unequal values. So whenever we have unequal values, we'll get first parameter. So 28 we are getting. And second, -1, -1. Since both are same values, equal values, we'll get null. And third one is 32 -1. So since both are unequal values, we'll get first value, that is 32. Add -1 and -1. Since both are equal values, we'll get null. And next 35 -1. So since both are unequal values, so we'll get first value, that is 35. And next final scenario is stripping out filter or default values. So sometimes databases contains placeholders, string definitions like NA, none, or 0 for fields where data was missing. So as of now, we saw about initially with 0, then empty string, then with -1. Now we are going to see with mainly NA and none. So for this, I created one more table here. And if you see in this, mainly we are going to concentrate on phone number column. So here, two records we have NA. So these NAs, since this database they're maintaining like this, whenever they don't have data, since they're mentioning either of these three options, but in our databases to do further transformations, we want to follow one standardized format that is converting to null. So here and here, these two values we want to convert to null. So for that, what I'm doing, select phone number. I give an alias name that is original underscore phone. So that is this is my input column. And on top of that, what I'm doing, nullif, and I'm applying on phone underscore number column. And here, what is my placeholder? NA. So very initial scenario, 0, then empty string, then -1, and now NA. And wherever we have NA, we'll get null. Why? Because if you see this particular value, NA, and this also NA. So both are equal, so we'll get null. So here also NA, will get null value. For remaining three cases, this and this value and this NA, this value and this NA. So these all three unequal values. So whenever we have unequal values, we'll get first value. So these three values we are getting as it is. Next, I'm saying what I'm doing. These two are my input columns, these two. And nullif, I'm applying on phone number. So that is this one. So here we can say from here to here, same this one. So whatever written here is, that is this one. And here, once we apply this nullif function, what it happens, our final output is this one. So wherever NA is there, we'll get nulls. So up to here, we'll be having output of this one, this column. And here, what is our intention is find employees with valid phone numbers. And if you see here, so these two are nulls, right? So this is not valid phone numbers. So only these three are valid phone numbers. So for that, what I'm doing, I'm using where condition. In where condition, I'm applying this one. So whatever I written, same condition I'm writing here. And additionally, I'm using is not null. So that means I want to filter out null values. So filter for doing filter out, we'll write here is not null. And why we are writing this whole syntax instead of mentioning alias name is, if you see as per SQL order of execution, so how query execute is not with select. So first execution is this one from, and second execution is where. So this is from table and where, and if you mention where this alias name, so it won't recognize this clean underscore phone. So that is the reason this whole syntax, whatever here syntax is there, that whole syntax, it is written here. So when this you can use it. So first one is from where, then having, after having a SQL execution order is select. So after having, if you are doing order by, in order by, you can use this alias name. Okay, so that is the main intention of writing like this. So since I'm filtering out all these null values, so I will get my output as these three values. And on top of it, what I'm doing here is, suppose here I want to filter the table that means I want to display the table after filtering null values. But here what I want is, I want only the count. So after filtering null values, how many valid phone numbers I want? I want only count. That means count of employees with valid phone numbers. So what are we written here? This same thing, that is this one, this one. So, or we can say here. So this one is this column. And after doing filtering out, what we'll get? 1, 2, 3. So these three are the valid phone numbers. So since we applied count function on this, so we'll get 3. And one more thing, suppose what I will do, I will write this one, otherwise I will copy this one. Here I want to tell one more thing, otherwise simply count will get confused. So for count, what I'm doing, first I will run this query. So if I run this one, what I will get for first one, clean 4. So the query does not include a group by class. Okay, so since count is there, so we need to apply group by. So what I will do, I don't want to do group by. Otherwise, what we can do is group by nullif. Okay, so group by and all I don't want here. So what I will do here is I will explain that straight away. So whatever here is there, nullif phone number here A. So that is what is the result of that? The result of that one is this column. So this entire column. So that means on in this entire column, we are applying this count function. This count function we are applying. So if you remember in SQL, so there is a differences between count of column and count star and count. There are three things will be there. Suppose if you write count of column, then what will happen? So by default, whatever you have null values, it will exclude. So that is the reason. If you see here, in previous case, you return the where condition. You return the where condition to filter out the null values. But here, whenever you are applying count, here I'm not using any where condition. But how we are getting 3? How we are getting 3 means, so count of column, it always excludes null values. So you can check this SQL concept like count, simple count, count of column, count of star, or otherwise count of distinct column. So you will come to know the difference. So why this count giving 3? So as per initially we assume that this count of this one, we should get 5. Why? Because here we have 5 rows. But why we are getting 3 is, so count of column, it always excludes null values. So total 5 is there, in that 2 nulls are there. So 5 minus 2, 3 will get. So that is about count. And finally, we can see quick reference examples. So select null if, so inside that 2 expressions. So 10 comma 10. Since both are equal, so our result will be null. So that means the inputs matching. And select null if 10 comma 20. So here both expressions are unequal. So since both are unequal, what will get result is first expression will get as the result. So 10 we are getting. So the inputs do not match, returns the first value. And next select null if apple or orange. What will get output is apple. Why? Because these two expressions are not matching. That means unequal. So whenever you have unequal, so we'll get first expression as the result. So that is apple. So the strings do not match, returns the first value. So next select null if apple comma apple. So we'll get null. So while get null is, since both expressions are equal, so we are getting null. So that means the strings match perfectly. So that is about how to use nullif function in SQL. And these are all the different scenarios we covered in this. And we discussed mainly why we need to use nullif function. So these are all the two reasons. So that's all about this video. If you really like this video, please like and subscribe. Thank you.